Hey guys, welcome to Kaiju Co, where we create custom Godzilla figures and review Kaiju collectibles. We're still on baby watch over here, which has let me put together one more project before the little guy arrives. I've been keeping tabs on some of the most highly requested monsters to design around, and the one we're doing for this video has come up so many times and has piqued my interest considering it doesn't even have a Bandai movie monster series figure of its own yet. It's one that I've never even seen the movie it comes from, but it's a mutated cuttlefish Gazora from the Toho film Space Amoeba, which was released in 1970. Fun fact, the only movie it shares with Godzilla is Final Wars, where it appeared in stock footage at the beginning. This creature is so obscure and niche, but since the design is so iconic, I thought it would be a really fun one to make. I love the show rubber suit aesthetic of it. It looks so cheap and campy, but that's where all the charm is. I want to make sure to capture this look in my model of it. Before we get started, if you love Godzilla, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all kinds of content around the Big G. We're on the road to 5,000 subs, and we can't get there without a little help from the Kaiju community. For this design, I want to stay true to Gazora's Squid build. It's hard to tell in images of him, but apparently he has 10 arms. Well, actually 8 arms and 2 tentacles, which, surprise surprise, is identical to what a real squid has. We'll also make sure he stands a little taller than the movie Monster Series figures so we can include more detail in the print. Now without further ado, we could grab our trusty iPad and jump into the 3D modeling app Nomad Sculpt to start creating our calamari kaiju. For this build, we'll want to try to get his mantle and fin shape down. I'm no squid expert, but that's what Google told me that this part of the head is. Once we have something that looks kind of like a medieval knight helmet, we should get the eyes situated so it's easier to work around them and figure out what needs to be done. For now, we'll use some placeholder spheres. Now we'll start building out the sides of Gazora's head fin. It's hard to tell in a lot of the frame stills from Space Amoeba exactly how his head shape looks, so I referenced some toy images and comics he's appeared in to try to stay as faithful to his Toho design as possible. We'll protrude out his side fins and stretch him out since he's starting to look a little too stocky. Now that the head is in a good spot, we can jump back into the Kaiju's eyes. In images of Gazora, they look kind of flat at the front and not sphere-like, so we'll trade out our placeholders for cylinders placed on their sides. I think we've rounded out the edges that will really look like the eyes of Gazora. To make sure the spacing of this giant calamari face is looking good, we'll add a sphere to act as the body right below the head. His eyeballs are next, and we'll use a Boolean technique to subtract the pupil from the main eye sphere. This matches up really nicely to the official look. Now that both eyes are looking perfectly Gazora-like, we can start what will probably be the most difficult part, the tentacles. After looking way too long at different images of Gazora trying to visually count his limbs, the math was not mathing. I did a quick Google search and found that, like a real squid, he has 10 arms, as we mentioned previously. We'll use the tube tool to create our squid appendages. I think it will look super cool to base his pose off of one of the main and only images that comes up for Gazora, with his 2 tentacles out like he's going to hug Godzilla, and his other limbs holding him up on land. This is looking great. We'll use a plane shape to make sure his limbs all end around the same Z-axis point so that this guy can stand when he gets printed. Next, we'll add in his back legs and make sure they support a majority of his weight. I tried to differentiate the legs up a bit so that they're not all carbon copies of each other. We don't want to half-ass anything. I'm trying to hold my work to a higher standard to give you guys the best results possible and improve as I go. Now, if you've taken a closer look at Gazora's Space Amoeba design, you know that he looks pretty beaten up. Like someone stripped the rubber off of a car and melted it into the shape of a squid. Well, we'll be adding some texture to give him that charming tokusatsu style look of a man in a rubber suit. To start, we'll roughen up the area around his pupils a bit. Nothing could be totally uniform here to really emphasize the rubbery look. Now this is the part that I was super excited to try and get right. His mantle is covered in the asymmetric grid of rubbery-like tile marks, and it just looks so cool and unique. I actually designed my own alpha brush here to try and copy the look. I really want to get it right. We'll use the stamp tool with our new Gazora alpha brush to press in the texture. This looks amazing. I also tried to create one for suction cups, which didn't work as well, so we'll try something else for that portion of the kaiju. Applying the stamp brush all around his big squid head has really elevated the look. I'm super happy with how this is looking. We'll definitely have to play around with custom alphas more going forward. I noticed the top of his head didn't really match my reference image, so we'll take a little off the top and reshape it to match. This is looking better. To soften the harshness, we'll tone down the texture slightly before we start adding the rubbery texture folds to Gazora's arms. We'll use this cool alpha I already had to sprinkle suction cups where appropriate on his arms and tentacles. I can already tell that this is going to look incredible printed since we're emphasizing some of the texture to account for the FDM nozzle. Now we can add some finishing touches of more folds to its tentacles to make sure there is no smooth portion, and go around the whole model, adding some slight variation to the squid's pores and tiling. Let's get this kaiju loaded up into Bamboo Studio and print it out on my P1S printer. I was pretty nervous to send this guy in one piece with all the overhangs around the tentacles, but my printer handled it like a champ with no stringing or problems at all. The result is looking phenomenal. That custom texturing translated perfectly to the physical model, and I bet it's going to pop even more after getting some color on it. We'll bring the model into the painting studio and start by hitting him with a layer of some black primer. This layer will allow our acrylic paint to stick better to the PLA and give us an even base to work with. Now before we continue, if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment for what Godzilla Kaiju you want to see next. Most of you guys aren't subscribed, and it really helps out the channel when you do. I love reading through all your suggestions and making sure I write down the most mentioned ones for future videos. Thank you for all your support. Let's dive back in and get this giant squid painted. I mixed up a bluish gray base coat that will start covering all of Gazora in. This was pretty tedious hand painting all the tentacles, but I think it left us with a really nice layer to start with. We'll let that dry overnight, and now we can get some color added to the eye area. We'll hit it with some pale yellow, which matches up with what I'm seeing in the reference photos. Now we can push the blues back a bunch with this grayish yellow that matches closely to what his skin actually looks like in the pictures. We'll be sure to keep some blue peeking out through for contrast and to add the messy rubber look the creature has. Once again, the hardest part is making sure we cover all the tentacles and getting deep into his undercarriage. We want to make sure it's a nice even coat of paint throughout. Now that the eyeballs have dried, we can add in a red-orange color to his pupils. This really pops and brings it much closer looking finished. I wonder if this guy will ever be brought back on screen to go up against Godzilla. I think he could look super cool in a modern style in the Monsterverse or even a Toho movie. Now we will go in with a dry brush of some darker blues to add some shadows for contrast and areas around lifted parts. And once that's dry, we'll smooth them in so they're not so defined. That's looking so good. Just one more quick addition. Some of this acrylic Liquitex high gloss varnish evenly applied to his eyes will really make them pop. It gives them a glossy finish that really shines. Now that we're done, it's on to the finished figure of Gazora from Space Amoeba. This one was super weird, one that I still haven't even seen the movie he belongs to, but he has a really cool design, and I hope I gave him the craftsmanship and care that this Squid Kaiju deserves. I think it came out incredible. I was nervous I wasn't going to get his coloration and charming crappiness down, but seeing the finished figure in all its glory, I think it looks great. Let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. I have some more figures coming my way to review, and I can't wait to share them with you. Before you leave, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification to stay up to date with the newest Godzilla and Kaiju content. I really appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one.